Ever notice how the moment you turn off the lights, your brain suddenly has somewhere else to be? You're lying there, eyes closed, body tired, and out of nowhere, you're having an entire conversation that never happened, defending yourself in an argument you already won, explaining yourself to someone who never asked, rehearsing what you'd say if you ran into them again. And here's the strange part. You're not even choosing to do this. It just starts. Welcome back to Psych Owl. If you've ever caught yourself lost in a conversation that only exists in your head, right before you're supposed to be sleeping, stay with me. Because what your brain is doing has a name, and it says more about you than you'd expect. You might think this makes you a little odd, maybe even a little dramatic. That's literally me, you're probably thinking right now. You're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. So let's talk about what's actually happening. Psychologists call this kind of imagined scenario self-generated thought. It's your mind creating situations that feel real, even though nothing about them is actually happening. Sometimes it's an argument. Sometimes it's a speech you're giving to a room full of people. Sometimes it's a version of a conversation from years ago, except this time you finally say the perfect thing. Here's the interesting part. Your brain doesn't fully know the difference between something you're imagining vividly and something that's actually happening. Think of your mind like a stage that never really goes dark. During the day, the lights are on and the stage is full. Other things are performing. Work, conversations, scrolling, noise. But at night, when everything else clears out, that stage doesn't go empty. Something still wants to perform. And so your brain writes a new scene and puts it on. That's why these imagined moments feel so vivid. You're not just remembering the emotion, you're recreating it. Maybe you're not overthinking. Maybe your brain is simply finishing something it never got to finish. There's something most people don't realize about this. A lot of these imagined scenarios aren't random. They usually circle back to moments where you felt unheard, misunderstood, or caught off guard. The conversation where you didn't say what you wanted to say. The situation where you froze instead of speaking up. Your mind replays it, but this time, you're in control. This time you say the right thing. This time you win. Psychologists sometimes describe this as an attempt at emotional completion. Your brain doesn't like loose ends. If something felt unresolved, it tries to resolve it, even if that resolution only happens in your imagination. So in a strange way, imagining a fake argument at 11 p.m. isn't your mind malfunctioning. It's your mind trying to protect you. It's trying to prepare you. It's trying to give you back a sense of control you didn't have in the moment. Think about the last time you replayed something. Chances are it wasn't a moment where everything went fine. It was a moment where you felt small or unprepared, or like you missed your window to say something that mattered. Your brain doesn't forget those moments easily, not because it's dramatic, but because it's trying to learn from them. It wants to make sure that next time you're ready. Next time you won't freeze. Next time you'll know exactly what to say. That's not weakness. That's your mind quietly training you for a version of the future where you don't get caught off guard again. But that's only part of the story. Because for some people, this isn't occasional. It becomes constant, detailed, almost cinematic. Full conversations, entire relationships, whole imagined futures playing out in their head, night after night. This is sometimes called maladaptive daydreaming, when imagined scenarios become so immersive and frequent that they start replacing real connection instead of supporting it. Here's where it gets surprising. Researchers studying this pattern have found it often shows up in people who are highly imaginative, emotionally sensitive, or who experienced periods of loneliness, especially earlier in life. The mind essentially built a very good coping skill, and it never stopped using it. So if this sounds like more than the occasional pre-sleep scenario for you, you're not weird. Your brain just became excellent at giving you what real life didn't, at least for a while. Now here's the twist. This tendency isn't only about coping. it's also deeply tied to how creative and socially aware your brain actually is. Behavioral psychology explains that mentally rehearsing conversations is a form of social simulation. Your brain is essentially running a prediction model. What might they say? How would I respond? What if this happens instead? This is the same mental skill actors use to build a character, the same skill writers use to imagine dialogue, the same skill highly empathetic people use to understand how someone else might feel before they even speak to them. So maybe you're not in your head too much. Maybe your brain is just really good at understanding people, including the version of you that didn't get to speak up earlier. Of course, like most things about the mind, this isn't only one thing. Sometimes imagining these scenarios is healthy. It helps you process, prepare, and release tension before sleep. It's your brain quietly working through something so you don't have to carry it into tomorrow. Other times, when it becomes constant, when it replaces real conversations, when it keeps you up far longer than it should, it can become a way of avoiding something instead of processing it. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because avoidance can feel safer than an unpredictable real conversation. The goal isn't to stop imagining things. Imagination isn't the problem. The goal is noticing when it's helping you release something and when it's quietly becoming a replacement for saying it out loud. There's a simple way to tell the difference. After a healthy round of imagining, you usually feel a little lighter. Something in you settles. But when it's turning into avoidance, you often feel the opposite. Restless, wound up, like you played the scene 100 times and somehow still didn't get anywhere. That feeling isn't a coincidence. It's your mind telling you the imagined version has done all it can do. The rest has to happen somewhere real. So here's a gentler way to look at it. If your mind keeps rehearsing an old conversation, it might not be asking you to imagine it better. It might be asking you to actually finish it in real life, even briefly, even imperfectly. Sometimes one honest sentence in reality does more for your mind than 100 perfect ones in your imagination. And if you're someone who does this almost every night, full conversations, entire situations, vivid and detailed, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It might mean your inner world is simply louder than most people's, because you feel things more deeply than you let on. That's not a flaw. That's sensitivity looking for an outlet. Maybe you're not avoiding people. Maybe you're just someone who processes life internally before you're ready to say it externally. And that's okay. The next time you're lying there, halfway into an imaginary conversation you didn't plan to have, you don't have to judge it. You can just notice it. Ask yourself gently, is this helping me let something go? Or is this something I actually need to say to someone, out loud, in real life? Either answer is okay. You're not overthinking. You're not too much. You're not broken. You're just someone whose mind never really stops trying to understand, connect, and make sense of things, even at midnight, even when no one's watching. If this sounds like you, I'd love to know. What's the scenario your mind keeps replaying? Tell me in the comments, because chances are someone reading this is nodding right now too. And if this helped you understand yourself a little better, stick around, because there's another quiet pattern your mind runs, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it either.